All right, here we go. We're live. We're ready to go. This is the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. I'm Mike Guido. That's Dalton Brown. We're doing kind of, I guess, a dual stream today. Bryson Carver is over on the same channel as us. He's live streaming as well. So if you click the button, I am not sure which which stream you're going to get. So, but it's all right. It's not too bad. But anyway, we're here. We are officially in off-season mode at the moment. But obviously the big happenings, right? The Dodgers take down the Yankees in the World Series in a 5-game series. And listen, I want to give myself credit first, obviously, before I let you go on your how much you love the Dodgers and everything tour. I will say that this series was going to end in one of two ways. It was either going to be Dodgers in 5 or Yankees in 7. And by the time Game 5 rolled around, it kind of was looking that way in both directions. So, I'll give myself a little bit of a pat on the back there. That's pretty much all I can give myself these days. But we have plenty of stuff to go over today. Obviously, we're recapping the World Series. We'll touch on what we think is going to happen over the offseason. We'll make some predictions for next year. But, Dalton, I'm sure you're feeling great, but I'll ask you anyway. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm doing about as well as a baseball fan can ever be doing. You can see I'm wearing the new World Series patch on the hat,
Yep.
Which I bought, which is, this is a product that I buy whether we win it or not. I mean, just getting there special. But yeah, I mean, I want to start with this. Regardless of anything that you might hear from a Joe Kelly, the Yankees were a very worthy opponent. I think realistically, that's a series where, Game 4, we kind of just rolled out our worst bullpen arms and got what you deserve for doing that and just got our asses kicked. Obviously, it feels good that all the games that we really went after to win, we won. But it doesn't mean that we dominated the series. I mean, if you watch those games, game by game, it was a battle. The Dodgers just did more of the little things to win each battle one by one, which there is something to that. But I didn't come away from that series feeling like, oh, well, we're clearly a lot better than the Yankees. Like if you told me the Dodgers and Yankees were going to replay the World Series starting 0-0 starting tomorrow, I'd be like, yeah, I make the Dodgers a small favorite, but I'm not feeling comfortable. You know what I mean? So I want to start with that. The Yankees deserve to be there, and Dodgers Yankees was always going to be some form of epic. Unfortunately for Yankee fans, it was epic mostly in one direction. Outside of one game that the Yankees deserve credit for winning, but it was also a game that the Dodgers kind of just said, yeah, have one. So that aside, I want to get into, just because I want to get the positive stuff out first, right? It's difficult, and I think you can understand this, Mike. It's difficult to put into words the emotions, the catharsis, the release that something like this is. I was in tears when Buehler struck out Verdugo to end it all. It was hard holding back tears during the parade. When you watch a team so religiously and closely over the course of not just weeks or months or years, but decades, you just don't get a moment. You don't ever know when you're going to get a moment like that, right? And especially for Dodger fans, and I want to be clear on this. This is not me claiming that Dodger fans have it rough. We have it pretty great, but you heard me a lot throughout this season say, look, I'm predisposed to expect that once the lights get bright, we're going to fold, because it's kind of what the Dodgers were known for. And a lot of people now are just like, oh, well, they bought their title. Of course they won. But it's worth noting, those are the same people who were like, oh, you guys always choke. You guys are going to lose in the first round anyway, even though, So look, and Dodger fans felt like we feel that, right? I'll just tell you from personal experience. I remember 2004, first playoff game I ever went to, watched us lose, right? 2006, we lose to the Mets when we have 2 runners getting thrown out at home at the same time with J.D. Drew and Jeff Kent. 2013, things look awesome. Hanley Ramirez takes a pitch to the ribs, and all of a sudden the series falls apart against the Cardinals. I could go on and on, right? 2014, we have Clayton Kershaw being put out there for a 7th inning when he's thrown 6 shutty and looked excellent, but his pitch count's at 120. Mattingly's rolling him out there for a 7th inning, and everything falls apart, and the season goes to shit, right? I can talk to you about 2008 when we allowed Jonathan Broxton to walk Chris Coast to face Jimmy Rollins, who hits a bases-clearing double to eliminate the Dodgers. I could go on and on and on with the moments where it was like, yep, here it is again. Like, here's that dread, right? Here's that feeling of like, shit. Like, I just spent 6 months investing hours and hours and hours into watching this team, and I'm just watching it all crumble in front of me, and I know I'm going to do the same shit to myself again next year, right? So, like, that feeling built up over a decade straight of it. And I will address the 2020 series as well, right? But that series built up over a decade straight of mostly just feeling that.
Yeah.
Unlike the 2020 World Series, like, this one really cleaned the slate for a lot of Dodger fans. Like, it changes everything. Like, everything. I mean, Dave Roberts at this point, I'm a fan. Like, literally, like, because I mean, I got to give it to him, right? I mean, there were a few games in this playoffs that he gave away on purpose, and like I told you before, I'm never going to be okay with that. But from a result standpoint, from a like how he managed the bullpens in the games that he wanted to win, all the way down to leaving Blake Trinan in and trusting his gut in that last game, turning to Walker Buehler and just trusting the humans, right? Like, these are things that Dave Roberts has been terrible at in the past. And he clearly made some adjustments this year and won the World Series with a team that's not even close to the best team he's had. And that's the part of this that, like, I mean, a lot of Dodger fans said they wanted the 2020 players and the 2017 players to be a part of this parade because we've had other teams that have had this type of special feeling to them, and they haven't gotten to celebrate like this. And so, like, Mike, I saw Clayton Kershaw interviewed while on the float at the parade. I saw him address Dodger fans at Dodger Stadium, which, by the way, 225,000 fans at the parade, another 50,000 sold out at Dodger Stadium on one and a half days notice that they were even doing that in the middle of the day on a Friday. You think this city was hungry for one? Like, I don't want, like, this is why when people try to clown fans in LA, I'm like, no, you got to get real, man. Like, when it comes to the Dodgers or the Lakers, like, LA fans don't express it the same way. But I'm here to tell you, it is like feverish. Like, it's nuts. And you could see it, man. Like, just looking around that audience at Dodger Stadium, the number of grown men that were crying. Clayton Kershaw, I saw him sobbing in 4 different interviews just on Friday alone. Like, and he didn't even pitch, but you could tell that, like, there's just such a release. Like, what? Oh man. I mean, I could go on and on. Like, I don't want to sit here and just gush about it for an hour because I really could.
Yeah.
But so many years of heartbreak just get washed away with this one in a way that they didn't in 2020. Because in 2020, like 10 minutes after the last pitch of the World Series, we're hearing about how Justin Turner has COVID. And we're hearing about, and like, you know, we know there's not going to be a parade. And I'm getting tons and tons of people texting me asterisks and Mickey Mouse memes, you know, 2 weeks after they were cheering for their own team in the playoffs, right? Like, the amount of disingenuous bullshit baggage that was carried with 2020. I felt a lot of joy, but it was also just like you felt like you've had to just defend it for 4 years. And it's just really, like, not a fun, pleasant thing the way it should be.
Right.
And to have this release, like, it's so special, Mike. And it's a tough thing because I don't, like, I'm expressing this to you because you happen to be the person who's on the show with me right now.
Yeah.
and it like, I want you to know that I take no joy in it being at your expense.
At my expense, yeah.
You just happen to be the fan of the other team, but like,
Yep.
you know, from a strictly Dodgers perspective, the number of demons that were exercised, the amount of baggage we no longer feel like we're carrying, and just the sheer like unmitigated joy of watching these guys, like, you know, everything Freddie Freeman went through this year with his son, like almost being on his deathbed and then nursing these injuries, like everything Walker Buehler went through this year, pitching so poorly in the regular season and just being a fucking dog when we needed him, like everything Clayton Kershaw's been through with the Dodgers over the last 17 years, like just everything, man. It was just so special to see them break through that way. And like, I don't know what's normal at a parade, but like, because like when your team doesn't win, you don't watch the parade. You know what I mean? Like you just don't. But I've seen Laker parades. I've seen other, like, I've never seen a parade like that, man. Like it was insane.
Yeah.
And like the number of people I knew who just said, yeah, screw it, I'm not working, I'm going. Like,
Yeah.
And like to pack Dodger Stadium with 50,000 people at 1 p.m. on a Friday. I don't know, man. I've been talking for like 10 minutes. I need to stop, but I'm just beside myself with emotion, with pride, with joy, with catharsis, with just the release of years and years and years of demons. And we're going to get into it a little bit later, but the Dodgers are going to be better next year than they were this year, potentially a lot better. So, yeah, man, I'll let you take it away with the Yankees talk. I want to preface it with this: like, I fully recognize that, like, the Yankees gave the Dodgers quite a bit in that series. It doesn't take away any of the joy for me, but I also, like, I'm not in denial of it. Like, the Dodgers did enough to win. They made the big, you know, they made the big plays, right? As you'd say, but you know,
Yeah, it was a painful series for me. And I listen, I think I am one of those people that doesn't think that like the Dodgers have anything to apologize for, right? Like this is just like the Dodgers won the series, period. Like as much as I would love to say that if Aaron Boone brings in Tim Hill and not Nestor Cortez, and we don't fucking have a little league inning in the top of the fifth of game 5, that this series could very easily be 3-2 going into LA in favor of us. As much as I want to say that, that's not the reality we live in. The reality is that those decisions were made. We had players that didn't execute. As much as everybody would like to say that Aaron Judge was finally getting going in game 5. Like, yeah, possibly. But in game 1, game 2, game 3, game 4, the guy was nowhere to be found. So, like, as much as like people would like to say, oh, we gave the Dodgers the series, I mean, the Dodgers didn't make the mistakes that we did. And that goes into being a better baseball team. Like, I don't know how else to put that. Like, it's just,
well, and one comment on that too, right, is because I have seen that a couple times from Yankee fans, and I don't engage in it because it's just like, we won, I don't need to engage in it. But like,
yeah,
the assumption that like, oh, it would have been 3-2 New York going back to LA. It's like, well, wait a minute. The Dodgers would not have managed game 4 that way if the series was anything other than 3-0.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
the entire series looks different.
You can butterfly affect things a gazillion different ways if you want to.
Yeah. You're right. And that's the thing is like, anyway, I'll say it like this. As far as the parade is concerned, the only parade that I saw that was, and like I said, I didn't like blatantly watch the thing. I saw different videos. I saw highlights of it, and it seemed pretty bonkers. The only one that I saw that was really comparable that I've seen in my lifetime, at least that I can remember seeing, was when the Cavs won the finals in 2016, and they had like a 1.5 million people at that. But like that parade was fucking insane. And I was a Cavs fan, so of course I watched it. So I was already in it. But here's what I'll say. I really badly wish that I wasn't a Yankee fan for this series, because I think I would be able to appreciate everything that you're saying about it more, right? The Freddie Freeman grand slam in game 1 would actually feel special instead of the nail in the coffin, right? Because, like, I'll even tell you this. There was, like, losing game 1 was not a surprise to me. Like I losing game 1 shouldn't feel like the series is over. It was because you lost it in that fashion that it felt like the series was over, right? Freddie Freeman injected some sort of magic in the Dodger franchise at that moment. So I was thinking to myself, I'm like, this isn't good. Like I don't know that you can recover from that, because the Dodgers are now feeling this entirely different way about this whole thing. Because again, if you go down in game 1, now you're just like, the Dodgers are now saying, oh shit. You know what I mean? Like, we just lost game 1 at home. Game 2 kind of almost becomes a must win. So you're like, all right, like now your back's against the wall. So anyway, I let me get into this, because this has been, like, the past few days, I have really, like, I've already kind of threw myself the pity party. I've already gone through my crippling depression for like the day or two after we lost the World Series. I've already gone through all of that emotional struggle. I am not really feeling that much anymore. Now I'm more like, the thing that's making me not breathe is whether or not we're going to keep Juan Soto. And that's really the thing that I'm focused on now. The thing is that I am kind of like, there's multiple people that I'm pissed at when it comes to this whole thing. Uh, the first I'll say group of people that I'm pissed at are Yankee fans. I'm pissed at them. And it has nothing to do with the World Series. Because truth be told, they're talking about, like, well, you know, if we don't get Juan Soto back, then, you know, we could go get Pete Alonso and go get Anthony Santander, and maybe we'll sign Blake Snell. And I'm like, fuck you. I'm like, I don't understand how, like, the entire notion of, like, how the Yankees are supposed to be run has completely fallen by the wayside over the last, like, 15 years. Like, it is bizarre to me how it's even kind of acceptable to some Yankee fans to not get Juan Soto back. That's the first thing. The second thing is this. I am going to spend the next couple of minutes shitting on Joe Kelly, because here's the reality. The dude didn't fucking play. Like, shut up. The Dodgers won the World Series, dude. Cool. You're on that team. They did it without you. They did it without you. There's no room for you to talk. None. If you want to throw a quick little jab and say, like, hey, we fuck them Yankees, whatever, at the beginning, fine. I'll take it. You beat us, whatever. You get to say whatever the fuck you want. Now, today, you're saying, if you were to re-rank the Yankees, if you were to re-rank the entire, they'd be 8th or 9th in the, like, now you're just talking shit for attention.
Yep.
Like there's no way that makes any logical sense whatsoever. So now, and here's the other thing. Joe Kelly, this set of comments from Joe Kelly was like blowing my mind. I couldn't even believe it. The other part is that when he was on the field with Ken Rosenthal, he said whatever, they were kicking it around, they were playing Yankee defense, whatever, like that. Whatever. It's true. We kicked around the ball. We played Yankee defense. John Boy Media, I know, freaked out, but I'm like that is kind of what we did. I didn't view it as overly disrespectful, but now I do. Fuck you, dude. I'm like, now the thing that you said before comes off as way worse, because now I know the intent behind it. So Now you're just a shithead. So I was like, I don't know. I'm so beyond done with like this, like, unreasonable Yankee hatred that has come after this. I just have. And here's the thing. I'm willing to take my jabs, right? I'm not somebody that is going to like complain about everything that everybody says. But everything about how people complain about the way the Yankees do things, right? Whether it's the no name on the back of the jersey, whether it's the facial hair thing, whether it's the like whatever, living in the past of what we do, right? Whatever. Here's the thing. We've won 9 World Series titles since 1962. Okay? So that takes 18 of our titles away. Since 1960, we're still first. We're still first. So I don't want to hear all of this living in the past bullshit. If Major League Baseball started in 1962, we'd still be in front. There is a standard that goes into recent history just as much as it goes into the past. We're not living in the past, but I'm sorry that we have a standard that we hold ourselves to. And listen, with that comes a lot of criticism. I understand all that. But then you can't bitch at us and say, see, you're just like everybody else. No, we're not. Because if we're just like everybody else, then treat us that way. So there we go. I had to get that off my chest. But congratulations, Dalton. I want no disdain for the Dodgers whatsoever, by the way. This is just frustrating me.
No, I want to cut in on the Joe Kelly thing because I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, it's not an important conversation, to be super clear. But but I do want to share a thought on it, which is, I can't speak for what happened with all Dodger fans on social media, but the ones I follow that I respect were universally like, dude, shut up. Like, stop talking. Like, nobody. Because here's the thing, right? I think if you were to ask me, hey, who was the toughest opponent the Dodgers played in this postseason? I would probably say the Padres, but that's just because I genuinely thought the Padres were the best team in baseball entering the playoffs.
Yeah.
If you were to say, hey, is it conceivable to you that the Phillies could be power ranked ahead of the Yankees? Yeah, conceivable, sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's conceivable maybe with the Astros. That's about as far as I could possibly go. Would be putting the Yankees like 4th or 5th, as far as I could possibly go. Realistically, I would probably rank the Yankees 2 or 3. Like, I'd probably go either Dodgers, Yankees, Padres, or Dodgers, Padres, Yankees, and then Phillies, and then Astros in some capacity, right?
Right, yeah.
So the whole thing is just silly at face value, right? Because if you're gonna actually rank the Yankees 8th or 9th, that means that you're sliding the Guardians in there. That means that
you're taking the Royals at what are we doing?
So the whole thing that he's doing is absurd. When I first saw the thing where he's like, yeah, we knew from the scouting report they were going to kick the ball around. I'm like, okay, yeah, probably. I'm sure it was in the scouting report that you want to make the Yankees play defense and not strike out. But I think that's true of the playoffs in general.
Yeah.
But when he starts going into the whole power ranking thing, that's where I'm just like, oh my God, shut up, Joe. Your WAR this year was negative 0.4. You were literally a detriment to the team this season when you entered ball games. I hated when you entered ball games all season. I wish you would just shut your fucking mouth. I don't know why we re-signed you to a 3-year deal 3 years ago, something we never do with relievers. I'm so done with Joe Kelly. I've been done with Joe Kelly all year. I don't even think it's the first time I've said it on this show. I want him to just go elsewhere.
He's like the pitcher version of Tommy Pham. I can't stand him. I cannot stand. Every time he opens his mouth, it's something shitty.
He's super annoying. And look, there's been some stuff he does that's kind of fun or kind of funny as a Dodger fan, where it's the whole mariachi thing. And there's some stuff he does that endears him to fans, mocking Carlos Correa, right? Dodgers fans ate that shit up. Nobody likes the Astros, blah, blah, blah. Right. But this, this type of shit is just Joe, nobody asked for that.
Yeah, right.
None of your teammates want you doing that. Look, I get it. If people want to have you on their show and you want to go talk, fine. Go talk. But it's just a tension grabbing horseshit that
it's crap. But that's the thing. Is people want him on their podcast, on their radio show and stuff like that because they know that he's going to say some shit like that. And, it's going to get a couple of laughs out of their audience, which I get it, man. Like, listen, I was in the radio business. Like, I understand that that's how that whole thing works.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't know. You're 100% right in the fact that just, like, I don't know. Like, of all the people that could have talked shit, like, listen, if that was coming from somebody like Mookie Betts, and I don't think Mookie Betts would ever say anything like that, to be honest with you. But, like, if that were coming from Mookie Betts, like, I think some people would hold some merit to it, even if they shouldn't. But Joe Kelly was bad this year.
He was terrible.
Joe Kelly, did he pitch? He didn't pitch an inning in the postseason, did he?
No, he wasn't on any of our postseason rosters, I don't think. He was
like, so that would be like, listen, that's it. Like, if we won the World Series, that would be like if like Carlos Narvaez said something about you guys, where it's just like, you don't even know who the guy. I mean, obviously everybody knows who Joe Kelly is, but if Taylor Trammell was just like, listen, I loved playing for the Yankees way more than I like playing for the Dodgers. You're like, dude, you had 5 at bats. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But by the way, my buddy Francesco says, for the record, Joe Kelly deals in MLB The Show. So there's a positive for Joe Kelly.
I mean, look, like, Joe Kelly has nasty stuff. That's why he keeps getting chances, because his stuff is nasty, but
yeah,
got no idea where it's going.
And
he like, the other thing too with him is he pitches like an asshole, like, which, like, it can work if you're able to pinpoint your stuff, but like, he pitches with an ego that doesn't match his ability to command his pitches. To put it simply. And I'm so done with it, man. I'm so done with it.
Yeah, listen. It's look. Listen. I'll say this, because I know that there's. By the way, I'll also address this for this reason. This is not a failed season by the Yankees. Like, let's stop with that right now. Like, yeah, it's disappointing that we didn't win the World Series, but like, dude, I don't know. Like, you're telling me that going into getting to the World Series and losing to a team that's that, at least from my perspective, that's legitimately better than you. You think that's a failed year? I don't think it is. Like, that's dumb. It's dumb.
No, I think, like, you can talk about, well, the standard's winning a World Series title. That's always our expectation. That's always what we want to do.
Of course.
It doesn't mean that not winning one is a failure, though, right? Like, it's like, yeah, like, there's more that I thought, like, there's more that I would have liked to accomplish. But, like, as a Yankee fan, I don't think you can, I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, obviously the sour taste at the end, but the season itself was pretty fun. Like,
listen, it was a blast.
Yeah.
It was, look, the fact that, like, Aaron Judge from, like, the end of April on was one of the best hitters we've ever seen. And the fact that Juan Soto was as entertaining and as much of a breath of fresh air as he was in the postseason, you saw Giancarlo Stanton turn into God. You're like what? Like, it was a fun year. You saw some pitching that you liked, right? I mean, it is not a failed year. The reality is that as a Yankee fan, I actually thought that this was a year that you saw a lot of things that you can build on, to be honest with you.
Sure.
However, I will say this, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that is only also true is if Juan Soto comes back. Because if Juan Soto doesn't come back, then you're back to the beginning of 2023. And I don't know that that's a place you want to be. And I don't know that there's any value that you could bring in. Like, because also, that that's not going to happen. Right? Oh, well, if the Yankees don't spend $600+ million on Juan Soto, they can go get, like I said before, Pete Alonso and Blake Snell and Anthony Santander and Christian Walker and whoever else. I'm like, that that's not going to happen. If they get, like, maybe they'll get one of those guys, maybe, but if they miss out on Juan Soto, like, this is not the George Steinbrenner Yankees anymore, and I'll get into what that all means a little bit later, but yes. So Dalton, congratulations on the World Series. Obviously, it was gut-wrenching and painful for me, but I'm glad that you were able to rejoice in your franchise. And again, one of the things that you kept telling me throughout the series and throughout really the playoffs was like the reason why one of the reasons why this Dodger World Series is so special is because most of the time over the last several years, you were me, right?
Oh yeah.
Like they just like it was all right there for them, but they found a way to fuck it up. And that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. That's kind of what you were saying, what makes this one a little bit more special.
Yeah, no, all of the emotions that you're feeling, I 1000% can relate to. Like I've felt all of them a whole bunch of times. So
Yeah.
I totally get it. Like that fifth inning, oof, like
I had
obviously
to
it's
turn the
not.
game off, dude. I had to turn the game off.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh my god, like this, because the thing that when you make the playoffs, what 11, 12 times in a row, and I'd say more than half those seasons, you're either the best or the second best team in baseball,
Yeah.
and you lose almost every time, usually in upset fashion. Like I can think back to innings that were bad, right?
Yeah.
Um, but to like that was for me what was so surreal about it, just to give you the other perspective on it, right? Is I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my god, like we're actually the team catching all the breaks all of a sudden. Like this is actually happening. Like we're like the opponent is the one disintegrating as we apply pressure. Like, whoa. It was
That's
like
a
jarring.
new feeling.
Yeah, it was like jarring. Because even in game one, you're like, yeah, like questionable pitching change, but like our guy fucking did it. Hell yeah. Right. Like,
Oh, yeah. Well, look,
but
Nestor Cortez could have gotten that out and he didn't.
sure.
You know what I mean? Like,
But game five, that fifth inning for me, all of a sudden I was like, whoa, like this is not especially once we took that 7-6 lead in the eighth inning, and I was kind of at peace with it. Like even if like Trinan had blown it again and we lost that game 8-7 or something, I had kind of reached a point where I was like, no, like I kind of think we're gonna we're gonna do it. Like if we're not doing it tonight, we're gonna do it. Like I really kind of started to believe that. It just felt like all the mojo was in our direction.
yeah.
And especially once Walker Buehler came into the game, like I had no doubt, zero, because the way he's looked in the postseason and the attitude he has, there is not a like Walker Buehler is a starter who acts like a closer and like kind of pitches like a closer.
Mhm.
And him coming into that spot, I don't know what it was about it, because I've seen Kershaw come into that spot and I'm shaking in my boots in the past. And I'm talking like when Kershaw was in his prime, right? Like Walker Buehler didn't look good all year, but coming into that spot, I was just like, oh, this is over. Like I knew
Yeah.
it.
Dude, for sure.
Because and it was just weird. Like I'm so used to, even when we win in the postseason, it feeling like, oh, all right, like I'm glad we won, but like, oh boy, you know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Right.
And that this was finally a moment where it was like, no, 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 we have the upper hand. Like we're pressing down on them, and they're cracking. Like it was just, the whole thing was so cathartic in that way. And obviously, like it's funny. I've seen people be like, oh, well, it's even better because it was against the Yankees. I'm like, not at all. Like I don't really give a shit that it was against the Yankees. Like that made the series, that increased the ratings. Obviously, like LA versus New York is a fun storyline and two big stages and all that, but like
Yeah.
that could have been against the fucking A's, and either way, I'm feeling this way, So,
Yeah. You
but
see what I
let's
mean? That's just the fucking like the Yankee hate. By the way, I will say this, and listen, I've already complained about it. I'm done. I'm done complaining about it. I'm done being angry about it. I want to move on with my life. But this is like the Dodgers beating the Yankees in the World Series has really enlightened so much of the Yankee hatred that goes around baseball. People fucking hate us.
yeah.
They really fucking do.
Well, and look, Mike, they hate us too when we're playing anybody other
Oh,
than you.
yeah.
Uh, to be clear. And the other thing, because I can relate to every single emotion you're feeling, even
I'm
these.
sure
And it's not. You got to understand. I went to Duke. I'm a Duke basketball
people
fan.
fucking hate you too. They do.
to levels that are irrational, right?
Yeah.
Like to levels that we can have an 18-year-old get assaulted by fans rushing the floor and it gets blamed on the kid.
That's crazy.
Like to that extent.
Yeah.
So trust me, I get it where you're
Yeah.
like, man, we're like look, we're a team that has fans and like we're not terrible people because we're fans of this team. Like I totally understand all of the emotions that you're feeling, man. So
Yep.
um and I say that as somebody
Uh,
who like, look, I grew up not liking the Yankees and not liking Duke, but the levels people take these things to are silly.
mhm.
But let's talk about 2025 because I'm
Yeah.
I'm really excited to talk about 2025 for both teams, and I also, I'm also excited to talk a little bit about like who are the other teams who we think are going to make a run at it next year.
Yeah. So let's talk about 2025. So one of the things that I think is important that we talk about really is that because I think you like both the Dodgers and the Yankees, I think have really big off seasons coming up. The Dodgers, I think, I don't want to say like they're playing with house money because I don't think that they are, but it's mostly like how can we actually make this team better from what we are. The Yankees, I think, are in a position of just like, okay, how can we keep this team afloat, right? So how can we keep winning? So let's start with the Dodgers because I think the Dodgers are a bit more of an interesting conversation because I think the Yankees can really be boiled down to, okay, keep Juan Soto and then figure everything else out later. That everything else is a far less superior priority. Um, so let's talk about the Dodgers. 2025 outlook. Obviously, they have some free agents that I'm sure they would want to bring back, guys like Teoscar Hernandez and guys like that. But what do you think is their outlook going into 2025? What do you see from them?
Yeah, I think the best angle for me to talk about this from is kind of what I think they should do,
Yeah.
and kind of where I think the priorities are going to lie. So the really nice thing is Tommy Edman is under contract for next season. And that's huge because that
Yeah.
gives us flexibility in a number of ways. Now, there are a couple different schools of thought on what's going to happen on the position player side. So I'll start on that side. As far as Teoscar Hernandez is concerned, he was offered the qualifying offer today. I don't think he's going to accept it, but he has been as vocal as any player in the majors about what team he wants to be on next year. Like he has said over and over and over, I want to be a Dodger for the rest of my career. I love it here. I don't want to go anywhere else. Now, the other voice in his ear is his agent telling him, like, okay, but I want to get you paid. I want to get you paid for a whole bunch of years. And so I think what this is going to come down to with Teo is number one, I don't think he's going to take the qualifying offer. If he did, I'd be thrilled. I think it's going to come down to like, are the Dodgers willing to go 3 or 4 or 5 years at those types of numbers? If I am the Dodgers front office, I'm giving him as much as 4 years, 90 million. I might go 5 years, 105, 110 maybe. Um, I'm not going further than 5 years. I don't think. I just don't. I mean, I just don't think that that's a good idea.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
like 3 to 5 years, preferably 4 years, like I'm good with it. I'd do it. I think if the Dodgers are in the same ballpark as other teams, he will re-sign with the Dodgers. My concern, and just knowing Friedman and knowing how the Dodgers operate, we do not give out. We like. I know it sounds insane to say this. The Dodgers do not have a very long history of giving out $100 million plus deals. Now, they gave one to Freddie Freeman. That was their first one in franchise history.
Yeah. That's
Think
bizarre.
about that, right? Like they gave one to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, obviously, Shohei Ohtani, obviously, Mookie Betts, obviously. Or no, the Mookie Betts one was the first one. The Mookie Betts one, obviously, right? So, but outside of that, like these long-term, high annual value deals is not something they do very often. I don't think you have to go crazy to re-sign Teo, though. I think you can do it for. I'll put it this way. I think if you come to Teo and you say, "Hey, we want to keep you 4 years, 85, 4 years, 90," I think it gets it done. So I'm hoping that happens. I'm also prepared for the possibility of him leaving to a team like Atlanta, a team like Boston, a team like the Yankees, potentially, although I doubt it. A number of teams that are contenders, right? Um, I think if the Dodgers let him leave, what they need to do is give some of these prospects who have been mashing in the minors a chance because they've been kind of blocked, right? Like Pages is obviously going to get his run again next year, but I think Dalton Rushing, who's been one of the best hitters in all of the minors, is going to get a chance next year in the outfield, potentially behind the plate as Will Smith's backup as we slowly move Austin Barnes out to pasture eventually, although we already brought him back for next year. I think Josue De Paula, another power hitter in our system, is going to be given a chance at some point in the bigs. So I do wonder if the Dodgers outfield outlook becomes, we're going to lean on Tommy Edman in center field. We got Mookie Betts in right. Left field, we can fill between Pages, De Paula, and Rushing. I don't think that that's a horrible situation to be in at all, because one of those three guys is going to be an all-star hitter. I'd bet on it. That then leaves shortstop as an area to be addressed, because you're not going to rely on Miguel Rojas to play 150 games at shortstop. The name that the Dodgers have been most linked to is Willy Adames. I think to me, if you're going like 6 years and beyond with him, I'm not sure if it's a great idea. If they can get Willy Adames for 4 or 5 years, I love it. He's coming off a season where he hit a career highs in home runs, career high in RBIs, like 32 homers, 112 RBIs, I think it was. The numbers on him have been ridiculous, and I think putting him in that lineup with the hitters around him, he's only going to get better. He's really good friends with Mookie Betts. He's a phenomenal clubhouse presence. I think some of the Dodgers thought might be, you throw Adames in that clubhouse to replace Teo's presence, it could work pretty well. The dark horse in all of this, 2 thoughts that I have. Number one, Shohei Ohtani and Teoscar Hernandez have grown very close. And Ohtani, I think, will have some say in what happens here. And I think there is a chance, I don't know how great of a chance, but there's a chance that Ohtani gets in the Dodgers' ear and says, hey, I want to make sure we keep Teo. Maybe that helps. My perfect offseason, Mike, would be you sign Teoscar Hernandez. I like Willy Adames. I wouldn't be upset at all if we signed him, but you pass up on Willy Adames, and I think you go for Ha-Seong Kim. I think Ha-Seong Kim can be had for cheaper. I think his defense provides a lot of value. I think he's a guy that would get on base consistently and a guy that would provide a really good foil in our lineup in the way that he's like a contact hitter against lefties. Like I think he'd be a great guy to put in our lineup. And then on the pitching side, this is where it's kind of tricky, because you've got a lot of emotional baggage to sift through here. Clayton Kershaw has already said that he's opting into his deal. He's coming back. He's going to be a Dodger again next year. And I don't blame him. He wants to have that one more season where he's healthy to see what he's actually capable of. And I don't blame him for that. That being said, like, Ohtani's going to be the ace. Glasnow is going to be the number 2. Yamamoto is going to be the number 3. If Roki Sasaki gets posted, he's going to be in the rotation as well. Because I'll tell you this right now, just like with the Ohtani thing, like I told you last offseason, if Roki Sasaki gets posted, don't get your hopes up. He's going to be a Dodger. I'm just telling you that, right? But he might not get posted this offseason. It might not happen until next year. Outside of that, I think I would like to see us bring back Buehler, but the fact that we didn't extend him a qualifying offer has me worried. I don't think they're really going to go too hard after Flaherty unless Flaherty comes back on a discount, which maybe he'll do. I think they want to give some of their younger pitchers a chance to earn their stripes and to earn some chances because they have plenty of them. That being said, we are going to be in the market for a starting pitcher. The name I think is the most possibly likely to sign. Don't be shocked if Blake Snell is a Dodger next year. I think the Dodgers know that they have a very righty-heavy rotation. I know that Friedman is enamored with Blake Snell going back to his days in Tampa. He would fit like a glove with the Dodgers and with our pitching coaches and our pitching philosophy. And just imagine a rotation of Ohtani, Glasnow, Yamamoto, Snell, and then all of a sudden your battle for the 5 is happening between Walker Buehler and Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May and all these names. Clayton Kershaw, like I don't even know what Clayton Kershaw's role could be at that point. And Clayton Kershaw is a guy that even the last couple of years is posting ERAs under 3.5 when he's healthy. So this is why the Dodgers winning the World Series in 2024 is somewhat of an absurdity, because next year, even a below average amount healthy next year, it is an embarrassment of riches in terms of organizational depth at the big league level. Like we won the World Series this year with 10 starting pitchers on the shelf. Like guys who would be top 3 or 4 at the worst in the rotation for every team in baseball. 10 of those guys on the shelf and we won the World Series. I'm not trying to pound my chest, but this is the reality of where the Dodgers are at organizationally right now. The depth is obscene. And so that also opens up the possibility of like, do they deal from that depth, right? Like, do you throw Dalton Rushing in a deal and go get Garrett Crochet? The Dodgers pitching rotation next year, if it stays healthy, will be the best in baseball. Not might be, will be the best in baseball if it's healthy. And you add that into what this lineup already can do. I'm telling you, if the Dodgers stay healthy next year, and I'm not just being a fanboy here, if the Dodgers stay healthy next year, which is a big if they stay healthy, that Mariners record is in trouble. That's how good they could be.
Yep. I don't disagree. Because look, I've been saying it all year this year. I said the Dodgers' excuse for not being 105 wins, right, is better than everybody else's. It just is. Because the reason the Dodgers were not as good as they could have been in the regular season was because of health and nothing else. That was it, right? They had they lost Mookie Betts for fucking 3 months, right? Like there was a lot of shit. There were so many pitching injuries that was going on with the Dodgers. And next year they get all that back. They're going to have money to spend. When I heard that they were going to be in on Juan Soto, I actually think I barfed. Like it was actually like, and listen, I don't think that he's going to be a Dodger, but just hearing that made me want to puke. But yes, I agree with you. I think Willy Adames is like, for some reason, I can just see it. I can just see Willy Adames in a Dodger jersey. And I think it would be a decent fit. I think if you brought back Hernandez and you had Willy Adames in that lineup, I think like that's just gross. like you're really you're not even bordering on the line of absurdity. You're there. You're fully into absurdity. So I don't know. I think you're going to see starting next year another level of Dodger hatred throughout baseball. Honest to God.
Yep, I'm ready for it.
You are going to see another level of Dodger hatred, especially, by the way, if they sign Roki Sasaki. If they sign Roki Sasaki, who, by the way, I desperately want, but it's killing me because I know he ain't coming here. I think that's really gonna that's gonna sting a lot of people around baseball, especially me.
Couple things on that too, right? It's not just Roki Sasaki either. It's probably Munetaka Murakami a couple years from now too. Also, your buddy Francesco, he left another comment. Dodgers deferred money after Roki signing circa 2037 will compete with U.S. national debt.
Probably.
Here's the funny thing about that too. Yeah. The funny thing about that is, like the Ohtani deal, the Dodgers have already paid for it, man. Like that's the thing. You can look at it and go, oh, they're going to be owing all this money. Dude, that money is fucking stashed away. From everything that I'm reading, the money that the Dodgers have made off of signing Ohtani this year has dwarfed what they expected. Like dwarfed it in terms of all the endorsements and all the Japanese TV, like everything coming out of Japan that came from it. I mean, 10% of Japan was tuning in for the Dodgers. Like 10% of the country was tuning in for the Dodgers postseason games. If people think that the Dodgers are like running out of money, this Ohtani deal is not a minus on their, like this Ohtani deal is making them a lot of money. It's making them richer.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like that's the thing is like, if people hate the Dodgers now, like just wait, because that Ohtani deal, even if they were paying him the full 70 million or whatever it is every season, even if they were paying that right now, it would still be a huge moneymaker for them every year. And again, I'm not like, I'm trying to not speak as a Dodger fan here and just speak from like a realism perspective. Like this shit could get scary.
Yeah. See, again, Francesco chiming in here for sure. I think Japan showed up in the for the World Series more than America did, and I think that that's actually true. I think more people from Japan watched the World Series than the United States. I actually think that that's true. That's not made up. But okay, my turn.
Yep.
Juan Soto. Juan Soto, Juan Soto, Juan Soto, Juan Soto, Juan Soto. I think that's priority priority A all the way through Z, going into double up letters. Like that is the thing that you need to accomplish first.
Yep.
Michael K, who I love, I will always have an affinity for Michael K. All right, said that, or at least he reportedly said that the Yankees need to put a deadline on Scott Boras to get this Juan Soto deal done. I am like, no, you don't. You have to get Juan Soto. That's what you have to do. Like, what do you mean there a deadline? Like, and this is what, one of the things that was infuriating me about like how everything was going after the World Series. First of all, I want to address how Juan Soto was acting after the World Series had ended. Right. I am inclined to believe that everything that Juan Soto said about his upcoming free agency after the World Series was over means absolute jack shit. It just does. It means absolutely nothing. Because what do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's going to say, listen, man, I love it in New York. I want to stay. If I have the chance, I want to re-sign with the Yankees. Of course he's not going to say that. Because then what? The Yankees are going to fucking lowball him. Like, of course he's not going to say that. And Scott Boras is fucking agent. Like, anybody who has Scott Boras as their agent is never going to commit to a single thing ever in their life until they sign on the dotted line. Period. Yep. And especially a free agent of which maybe we've never seen before in Juan Soto, being a guy who's 26 years old and is this fucking good already, right? Obviously, we had Ohtani last year. I'll give you that. But Juan Soto is clearly priority number one. I will go as far to say this, and Dalton, I have a feeling that you're going to look at me and you're going to look at me as if I'm overreacting, and I understand why, but I'm standing by this. If Juan Soto does not end up in the Bronx, I will go as far to commit myself to saying that the Yankees have become unserious about winning. I will honestly say that. They cannot convince me or anybody in this fan base that if they don't bring back Juan Soto at any cost necessary, that winning is not their number one priority anymore. It just simply isn't. It's not. Because you know for a fact that how the Yankees used to run, and this is a real thing, how the Yankees used to run, there would be no question ever that Juan Soto would come back. None. It would be done already. No Yankee fan, no Met fan would be out there saying, he's going to be a Met, because they would already know that he's not leaving the Bronx. The fact that this is even a question is scary to me, right? So that's the first thing. It is. Go ahead. I want to.
Well, so, okay. The fact that it's a question is, I think, because like nobody used to compete with the Yankees in terms of money. And now there are teams that can and do. Right. And I don't blame the Yankees for the fact that there are other teams competing on their financial level now.
Oh, sure.
Especially in the case of the Mets, right? Like, I do. So my question for you on this becomes,
sure,
is there a number at which point you walk away? And I know what you're probably thinking. Well, no, you pay him what? But let me put it to you this way, right? If the Yankees come out and they go $650 and the Mets go $655, right? And the Yankees go, okay, $660, right? And they keep going and going and going and going and going. What's the number it gets to where you're like, you know what, Mets, fine? Because there's got to be a number, right? Maybe it's $1 billion, but there's got to be a number.
I think the answer to that question is a little bit more complicated, only because I think that like every player is going to just have it's going to have a number where no matter who's paying it, it's just going to become financially irresponsible, right? Like I would think that once here's the number I'll give. I think if Juan Soto's number becomes more than 750, I back out. I think if it becomes more than 750, I back out.
Well,
I would be willing after this year to pay him more than the Dodgers paid Ohtani. But and listen, that's not to say that Juan Soto's a better player than Ohtani is. He's
no,
not.
he's younger though. Yeah, I get it.
But you're right. But he's younger, and I think in the severity of the situation, I think it warrants it. Right. Here's the issue that I have when it comes to the Mets and the Yankees and their play for Juan Soto. I think even for the Mets, there's a number they won't go to, right? And I think that number is not all that different from where the Yankees would be. Because truth be told, like the Mets very easily, and I know we may have even discussed this before. This whole thing that Steve Cohen is just going to throw more money by a lot at everybody he wants when he wants them is a fucking myth. It's a myth. Okay. I get it. He's got tons of money. And I'm sure that, and he's already shown it, right? The Mets are now becoming financially competitive in the free agent market, which we didn't see when the Wilpons owned the team. I get all that. Steve Cohen, though, is not going to put his team in financial ruin just to stick it to the Yankees, just to try to bury other teams. It's not going to happen, right? He backed out of the Carlos Correa deal for something that showed up in his medicals. Okay, like, look, there's nothing wrong with that. That contract was big, but it showed fiscal responsibility. It showed organizational responsibility, right? They backed out of a deal that they easily could afford because of that financial responsibility, right? If the Mets really wanted Yoshinobu Yamamoto, right? Listen, we all kind of assumed, I mean, obviously after the deal was done, I think everybody kind of knew he was going to go to the Dodgers. Okay. If the Mets really wanted Yamamoto, why didn't they just say, okay, Yoshi, you want to go to the Dodgers? They're offering you 12, 325. We're going to offer you 15, 450. Say no to that. Because that seems to be the impression that Met fans have, are just like, well, the Mets are just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up until every team can't afford it anymore. I don't think that that's the case, because every player has a point where it becomes irresponsible to pay them anymore. Just because they have tons of money does not mean that the cap among all players, it just disappears. It just doesn't. So when it comes to Juan Soto, if the cap is 750, or if let's even say that it's lower. Let's say the cap is 700. Let's say it's Ohtani's level. I don't know that the Yankees would back down at 700, and I don't know that the Mets would go higher than 700, because I think the Mets would also realize that, all right, paying Juan Soto over 700 million is probably a little kind of crazy. Like,
okay, yeah, but the reason I think it's important to establish that number is because I think I think it's important to know that number, because here's the thing. Let's say let's say he ends up signing for a deal that's worth a total of $812 million. Like, if that happens and you and I record a show to start next season, right? Are you going to be filled with rage if he signs with the Mets for some number of years and $812 million?
well, look, I think at that point, probably not. But probably not at the Yankees. I'd probably be furious with the Mets. But yeah, I think you make a fair point, but I also don't think that it's going to go there. Like
Sure.
that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah, I mean, no, I just think I'm interested to see what happens, right? Because what's happened with the Yankees on some of the free agents recently, and obviously, I think Judge is more the blueprint you're looking at, where it's like, no, this is our guy, we're going to keep him, like, period.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, with the Yankees, there have been players like Yamamoto comes to mind, right, where the Yankees said, nope, that went above our number, we're not doing it. And my concern is maybe the Yankees number isn't 750. Maybe their number is 650 or 700. that's where it gets hairy of like, well, like you might have a number in your mind, but you got to think about like, well, what are you actually losing if you don't go beyond that number?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the actual opportunity cost? And because you're one thing I wholeheartedly agree with you on is number one, we as fans, I think it's important to remind ourselves every once in a while, it's not our fucking money. Like seriously, like it's not. Like that's what's so funny is when people point to Dodger fans and like, you bought your World Series. How can you be happy with it? It's like, first of all, fuck off. Second of all, like I didn't pay for shit. Like I'm not paying Shohei Ohtani $1, man. Beers are going to be expensive at Dodger Stadium, whether Shohei Ohtani's on the team or not. So I'd rather those owners empty their pockets to do it. And oh, by the way, they're going to make a whole lot more money for doing it, right?
Right.
I think with Soto, it follows the same logic line of it's just like, Mike, it's not your money. Who gives a shit? Like
Yeah.
if it ends up going to 850 and you get Juan Soto, you're getting Juan Soto. I don't care. Like that's how I look at it.
Yeah.
At least like because I'm like the easiest comparable thing is Ohtani, right? Last offseason, my view on the Ohtani situation was literally I do not care. I do not care what the number is. Get it done. Get it done. I do not care. Like so that's how I look at it. Look, I think it's I'll put it this way. If you were to ask me to handicap it, I think it's 70% he goes to the Yankees, 25% he goes to the Mets, 5% he goes to some team we're not thinking of.
Yeah, the Blue Jays or the fucking Nationals or whatever. Like he'll go
Just
somewhere.
some team comes out and the Giants are a
Right.
type of team I could see doing that, or the Padres,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah.
I think the Dodgers will have the conversation because they're the Dodgers, but I don't think he wants like I'm just being honest. I don't think he wants to be a Dodger. I think he wants to beat the Dodgers. I think that's where Juan Soto's head's at right now.
Do you think okay? Because now I kind of want to get your feel on this. Do you think Juan Soto wants to be in the Bronx? Or do you think he genuinely looks at this as if the fucking Cardinals give me the most money, I'm going there?
Dude, he's been pretty consistent about it, man. Like he really has. Like
Mhm.
if there's one thing that I will give Juan Soto in all this, I mean, he's the unbelievable in a lot of ways, but like Juan Soto has said, and Juan Soto and his people have said over and over and over and over, and it's all I've heard everywhere is like, whoever offers me the most money wants me the most. That's where I'm going to go. Like he has said that over and over and over and over. Now there might be limitations to that. If the Colorado Rockies offer him the most money, like maybe he's just like I don't want to go rot there. But
Right.
like, man, like I'll put it this way: if the Yankees and Mets each offer him 650, and the Tampa Bay, they're a bad example. if the Yankees and Mets each offer him 650, and the Texas Rangers come over the top at 700, I think he's a Ranger. I do. Now, if it's close, I do think he likes the Bronx. I think Juan Soto's preferred situation is the Yankees pay me $1 gazillion and I stay in New York. But I don't think he's immovable at all.
No, I agree. I fall in line with you in the sense of like I think winning matters to him to some degree, right? He's not going to go play for the Chicago White Sox because they paid him $750 million. Like I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to be like, bow out. I'm going to go somewhere where I can actually win. I do think that if the Yankees and the Mets are close, I think he would pick the Yankees even if it's for slightly less. I think so. I think so. I think if you're looking at like the Yankees are offering him 12-7 and the Mets are offering him 12-7-10.
No, I think he goes to the Mets because I think at that point his view becomes like either way I'm in New York, either way I'm playing for a team that wants to win. Hey Yankees, if you want me, you'll beat their offer. I genuinely think that's my read on him.
It's possible. Yeah, it's certainly possible.
And Mike, if the Yankees, like I'll put it this way, if the Yankees aren't willing to pay up an extra $10 million to him over 12 years, they don't deserve.
I would burn everything I own. It would. Yeah. I'm with you. All right. Let's move to this. So real quick. So let's touch on a little bit more of what could happen next year. So we saw the Yankees and the Dodgers in the World Series this year. Great. Next year, I think it's possible that you could see the Dodgers and the Yankees potentially being favored to go to the World Series. Again, I think the Dodgers are certainly going to be at the top of that list. We'll see what happens with the Yankees over the course of the offseason and everything like that. But in each league, Dalton, if you had to see one team going to the World Series next year, and again, there's still lots to figure out. It's still unbelievably early in the offseason. It just started, right? If you had to see one team in each league outside of the Yankees or the Dodgers to go to the World Series next year, who are you putting your money on right now?
So I think it's a lot easier to imagine a few teams in the NL than the AL because I'll be honest, the American League is kind of shitty right now.
It certainly is.
Like it just kind of is. So, but I think in the National League, I think I hate that I think this, but I gotta just give it to you honestly. The Mets, not because of
Wow.
who the Mets are now, but I think the upside with what the Mets might do this offseason, like they could make themselves that team. I wouldn't put it past them. But I think the Braves could be in that conversation. The Padres could be in that conversation. This is going to be an interesting offseason for them. The Phillies very well could be in that conversation. And then, and then other than that, it just comes down to like, does some team that we're not thinking about go nuts this offseason?
Right.
But if you put a gun in my head and say, hey, it's not going to be the Dodgers, who's it going to be? I kind of just think that the range of outcomes for the Mets, like I think Steve Cohen is going to empty the tank this offseason. And so that's going to be my pick in the NL. In the AL, so the AL Central, I think is going to be kind of just like a mosh pit. I think the Guardians will regress. I think the Twins, like with the ownership change, are just in a weird place right now. I think the Tigers aren't quite there yet. I think the Astros are going to take a step back. In the AL, it comes down to the Orioles if they like invest in some pitching, or maybe the Kansas City Royals. I think the Kansas City Royals young core getting a year better. They've already gone out and re-signed Waka. Cole Reagans looks like an ace's ace. Like I think if the Royals continue to spend, I'll go with them as the sneaky team that could get there out of the AL. Who are yours?
So, as far as the National League is concerned, I don't think I'm taking anybody in the NL West because I think, truth be told, I think the Dodgers are just I think they're ridiculous. I honestly think that we could be looking at a 115 win Dodger team next year, and everybody else in there is going to be struggling for a wild card spot just for the sheer strength of the Dodgers. I think in the NL, I would probably still take the Phillies only because I still think that that's a team that's built for the postseason. I still think the environment they play in is very, very strong for the postseason. Obviously, they're losing some relievers in the back end of their bullpen, right? They're losing Carlos Estevez. They're losing Jeff Hoffman, who I don't think are out of the realm of possibility for them to bring back. But that's going to be their thing. I still think that they're going to be able to put up starting pitching that's almost as good as anybody else when it comes down to a postseason rotation with Wheeler, Nola, Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, whoever else. I think they can still put together arms like that in a rotation. They're going to be able to hit. Like, look, what the Phillies were this year was very, very interesting, only for the fact that they got off to an unbelievable start. They looked like the clear best team in baseball. And then in the middle of the summer, they just kind of hit a wall and played 500 the rest of the way. I don't know that that's going to happen to them again next year. I do think they're going to try to make some improvements to their roster. We'll see what they are. But I think the Phillies right now, I think, are the team to look out for as far as that. Like I said, I still think the Dodgers are way head and shoulders above everybody else today. We'll see how it goes as the offseason progresses. In the American League, I agree with you. It's kind of a shit show. Like, I think you would like to see, a lot of people would say, okay, the Orioles, another year of development for their guys if they invest in some pitching, whether they bring back Burns, whether they sign Blake Snell, whether they sign Max Fried, whoever else. Like, as long as they invest in some pitching, then maybe they could find themselves in a better position next year than they were this year. I like what you said about the Royals. Again, they kind of have to continue to invest. I I don't know that I'm like it's tough, man. It really is because I think like the AL Central's a shit. I don't want to say Cleveland because I just I don't know. I'm still not convinced that they're not ass. You know what I mean?
They're ass. They
They're
remain
ass.
ass, man. Like,
Oh boy, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know. Texas. I like here's the thing. Like I think the Rangers could be interesting only because like they've done it before. They've shown the affinity to not be afraid of spending money. Again, if they can shore up part of their rotation, right? Because their rotation's been unbelievably hurt for the last several years, right? DeGrom and Scherzer and Evaldi and those guys. Like I I don't know. I'm maybe like, but that's kind of the impression I get is like, okay, you're looking at maybe Texas, maybe Baltimore, maybe Kansas City, maybe I like, I don't know. Could Cleveland make a run again? I agree with you. I think the Astros are going to take a step back, but I don't know. Seattle, maybe if Seattle could invest in some bats, like, I don't know.
the thing that makes it tough for me to believe in Seattle is we've seen them invest in bats and it not work. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the ballpark. I don't know if it's how they develop their bat. I don't know what it is, but like they can't seem to find a way to hit.
Yeah.
And so like I kind of have to see it to trust it with Seattle. The Rangers are interesting. There's young talent there that continues to grow. They're a team that we know will spend money. So I can see that. The concern is obviously like DeGrom and Scherzer now have just these incredibly colorful injury histories, and they're in their mid to upper 30s. Like,
Oh yeah.
It starts to get tough to believe in those guys. But yeah, I mean, there's a path. I could see it. The Tigers could be interesting, like because I get the impression, like because for some reason I follow a few Tigers people, and like I'll tell you this much: like Tigers fans and those who talk about the Tigers are convinced that they're going to go nuts this offseason. And if they do, maybe I don't know. I mean, like because the pitching there is real. So I don't know. Just a thought.
No, I think the pitching there is real. Obviously they need bats. Like they desperately need bats in that lineup. They also need some of their young guys to start hitting, right? Like Riley Green, I think kind of has started to establish himself, but like guys like Spencer Torkelson, guys like Colt Keith, like those guys really kind of need to come into their own and develop into legit major league bats. I think for them to kind of remain competitive, and we'll see. I mean, as long as they keep Tarek Skubal, I think they're going to be in some sort of contention when their pitching is that good. All right. All right. So that'll do it for us. Dalton, you got anything left before we conclude? We wrap up the 2024 season.
No, obviously grateful to anybody that's tuned in this year. I don't know, man. I expelled so much emotion last week. Just so much, like so many mistakes forgiven, so much heartbreak healed. It's just nice to go into next season like super genuinely optimistic and not jaded. So yeah, man. I mean, all good stuff here. Obviously I feel for you because like you didn't just have to watch the Yankees lose the World Series. Like they really took a shit on their own foot. Like, and so I feel for you. No fan base deserves to deal with that. Like that was brutal, but but the Yankees will be back and competitive next year. Probably with Juan Soto again. And hopefully next fall we're watching the same matchup. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be fun. I hope that watching the Dodgers celebrate on our home field hurt the front office as much as it hurt me. Because I didn't expect to be like that jarred by that, but I was. I was like, this fucking sucks. Like watching the Dodgers go nuts on Yankee Stadium. But all right. That does it for us. Mike Guido, that's Dalton Brown. Again, we appreciate you tuning into the Bicoastal Baseball Podcast all season long. We'll be back. We'll be covering the offseason. We'll be going through all that, pre-season bullshit that we got to go through before the season actually starts, before we finally get into some real games again in late February and early March. We'll see. Again, Dalton Brown, Mike Guido, Bicoastal Baseball Podcast on the Grid Network. We'll see you then.